Savannah Brockhill was born around 1993 and came from a large traveller family where many of the men were involved in boxing, both licensed and unlicensed. It's reported that her paternal grandfather and the father of former world heavyweight champion boxer Tyson Fury, known as the Gypsy King, were cousins. The family appeared to have a lot of money, and a reporter was later shown a picture of Brockhill when she was younger, posing with Tyson Fury, along with one of her siblings called Scarlett, whilst both were wearing mink coats, each costing around £5,000. The huge family resided on a compound in Lancashire, with properties, including luxury caravans and chalets, being valued at around £1.5 million in total. Brockhill left school at the age of 10 to take on duties in the family home, but she excelled at boxing and apparently earned a £1,500 a month grant to train full-time with the British women's boxing team. She was on her way to competing in the Olympics, but her dream was ended when her spine was damaged in a serious car accident when she was 19 years old. Until her mid-20s, Savannah Brockhill, astonishingly, considering her complete lack of empathy, worked as a home carer, helping the elderly, but she also worked as a pub bouncer and later trained as a security dog handler. She also bred Staffordshire Terriers, and her father reckoned she could clear £8,000 a month. Where Brockhill and her family got their money from is a really big question, and I think the fact that she clearly grew up being given everything she ever wanted is likely where her sense of entitlement comes from, her belief that people should do what she says, regardless of what they want. Savannah Brockhill was a lesbian and had a number of relationships, and at least one of these she supports as having been violent and controlling, resulting in her being made subject to a restraining order in 2015. However, this single incident is likely the tip of the iceberg, because as we'll see, Brockhill was an extremely dangerous, possessive domestic abuser, who likely, in large part due to her jealousy about the attention an infant was getting from her mother, would abuse and eventually murder Star Hobson. This section will cover a lot. We'll look at the toxic relationship between Frankie Smith and Savannah Brockhill, which is intertwined with the abuse of Star Hobson, but we'll also look at professional failings in this case, which meant that an innocent little girl was left in the clutches of monsters. I'll cover most of the key incidents, but there were many, many more. Details of the abuse in the chronology I'm taking from the National Review into Star's murder. So, with regards to Smith and Brockhill, within weeks of their first meeting in October 2019, they were in a relationship, and the warning flags were there immediately. The pair were obsessed with each other. Between the date that they first met and the murder of Star less than a year later, they were always in contact. In court, thousands upon thousands of messages and phone logs were exhibited which showed they were in contact morning, noon and night. Despite only having been together for a short time, Smith would tell people that Brockhill was her wife and that Star was their child. In a baby book she had, to document Star's life, she'd written Brockhill's name in a box where the name of the father was meant to appear. Smith also got Brockhill's name tattooed on herself. Star was forced to treat this woman she hardly knew as her second mother. Brockhill bizarrely began by saying that Star was her sister, before telling people, in line with Smith, that she was her daughter. All of this was in around the first month of their relationship. As I'll outline, both Smith and Brockhill would abuse Star, both physically and emotionally, with the latter's level of violence being sadistic. When this began is unclear, but it was likely immediately, with the first signs being noticed in January 2020. On the 23rd of January, a young woman called Holly Jones, who adored Star and the feeling was mutual, was babysitting her, which was a regular occurrence, as Smith, her mother Yvonne, and Brockhill would go out on the piss most nights. Holly noticed bruises on Star's body. She then made an anonymous call to the Social Services Department at Bradford City Council, raising her concerns. This led to a visit by a social worker a few days later, and Holly was present during this. However, she stated later that the social worker called an hour ahead of time, saying she was coming. This led to 60 frantic minutes, while Smith and Brockhill covered up Star's bruises. As Holly later stated, quote, "It's like ringing up a criminal an hour before and saying, 'I'm coming to get you.' It just doesn't really make sense." At the visit, no concerns were noted, and the case was closed. In February 2020, family members were concerned that Star looked depressed and frightened. Brockhill would often have pictures taken with Star, and in these, you can see this little girl looks terrified and uncomfortable. This is also evident in this video.